Just a quiet florist arranging roses, until the shot that saved 3 hostages made everyone realize she was anything but ordinary. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this intense story of hidden precision and life-saving skills, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if stories like this deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button. Emma Rodriguez unlocked the doors of Blooming Heart's flower shop at 6:30 a.m., just as she had every morning for the past 4 years. The small storefront on Maple Street looked ordinary. Hand-painted wooden sign, mason jars filled with seasonal arrangements, and the gentle scent of fresh peonies drifting into the cool morning air. At 32, Emma had built a reputation as the most artistic florist in Riverside. Her wedding bouquets were legendary, her funeral arrangements brought comfort to grieving families, and her hands moved with a precision that customers often remarked upon. What they didn't know was where that precision came from. "Morning, Emma," called Mrs. Henderson, her elderly neighbor who ran the antique shop next door. "Beautiful roses in the window today." "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson. Just got them in from the farm upstate." Emma's voice was soft, measured, the kind of tone that put people at ease. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore a floral apron over jeans and a cream sweater. As Emma arranged the morning display, her hands moved with mechanical efficiency. Each stem cut to precise length, each bloom positioned at exact angles. To customers, it looked like artistic talent. To anyone who understood ballistics, wind compensation, and target acquisition, it might have looked like something else entirely. Emma had been Staff Sergeant Emma Rodriguez, United States Army Special Forces, for 8 years before she became a florist. She'd been one of the military's most effective long-range marksmen, with confirmed eliminations across 3 theaters of operation. Her record spoke for itself. 127 confirmed hostile targets neutralized, 2,847 meters maximum effective range, 98.7% accuracy rating. But that was a different life. A life she'd left behind when she decided that creating beauty was better than delivering death. At 9:15 a.m., the brass bell above the door chimed as her first customer entered. Detective Ray Morrison from the Riverside Police Department stepped inside, looking uncomfortable among the delicate arrangements. "Ms. Rodriguez, I need to ask you about something." Emma looked up from the orchid she was repotting, her expression calm but alert. In her old life, unexpected visits from law enforcement usually meant mission briefings. In this life, she hoped it meant nothing more than questions about a local incident. "What can I help you with, Detective?" "There's been a situation developing across the street. Armed suspect in the office building holding 3 hostages on the 4th floor. We've evacuated the area, but—" Morrison hesitated, glancing toward the window. Emma followed his gaze. Through her shop window, she could see police cars, SWAT vehicles, and officers taking positions behind concrete barriers. The office building across the street, Henderson and Associates accounting firm, had several windows with people visible inside. "We need to evacuate you and the neighboring businesses," Morrison continued. "It's not safe here." Emma nodded, but something in her expression shifted. Her eyes moved to the office building with a different kind of focus, automatically calculating angles, wind patterns, and sight lines. 4 years of civilian life, and her mind still worked like a sniper's scope. "Detective, what's the suspect's position?" "4th floor, corner office, why?" Emma didn't answer immediately. She was studying the building with the systematic precision she'd been trained to use. 4th floor, corner office meant approximately 47 meters horizontal distance, 12 meters elevation difference, light wind from the southwest, minimal atmospheric distortion. "Ms. Rodriguez, we need to move you to safety." "Yes, of course." Emma began closing the register, but her eyes kept drifting to the window. "Detective, do you have visual on the hostages?" "Some. Look, this isn't something civilians need to worry about. Our tactical team is handling it." Emma almost smiled at being called a civilian. "I'm sure they are. How long has this been going on?" "About an hour. Suspect's name is Marcus Webb, former accountant at the firm. Lost his job last month, came back today with a rifle and some kind of grievance." The word rifle made Emma's pulse quicken slightly, not from fear, but from recognition. She understood rifles the way other people understood familiar tools. "Detective, I'll pack up and leave. Just need a few minutes." Morrison nodded and stepped outside to coordinate the evacuation. Emma moved to the back of her shop, ostensibly to gather her things. Instead, she climbed the narrow stairs to her storage loft and approached the small window that faced the office building. From this angle, she had a clear line of sight to the fourth-floor corner office. Through the glass, she could see a man pacing erratically, holding what appeared to be a hunting rifle. 3 people sat on the floor in the far corner of the room, 2 women and a man, clearly terrified. Emma's mind automatically began calculating the shot. Wind speed approximately 8 miles per hour from the southwest. Distance 52 meters accounting for elevation. Glass barrier requiring compensation for refraction. Target moving unpredictably, but following a pattern. She shook her head, forcing herself to step back from the window. That wasn't her job anymore. She arranged flowers. She created beauty. She didn't take lives. But as she gathered her purse and keys, Emma couldn't stop thinking about the 3 people sitting on that floor, waiting to see if they would live or die. By 11 a.m., the situation had deteriorated. Emma sat in her car 2 blocks away, listening to police radio chatter on the scanner she'd never quite been able to throw away. The suspect had become increasingly agitated, making demands that couldn't be met and threatening the hostages every few minutes. "Suspect is requesting helicopter transport and $500,000 in cash," crackled the radio. "Tactical assessment is that he's becoming more unstable. We may need to consider intervention." Emma closed her eyes. Intervention meant SWAT entry, which meant risk to the hostages. She'd seen enough tactical operations to know how quickly things could go wrong when adrenaline and fear mixed with automatic weapons. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Henderson. "Dear, they won't let me back to my shop. Are you safe?" Emma replied that she was fine, but her eyes kept drifting toward the office building visible in the distance. She could see the SWAT team positioning on nearby rooftops, setting up for potential sniper shots. The problem was angle. From their positions, they'd be shooting down at a steep angle through glass, with innocent people in close proximity to the target. At 11:23 a.m., the radio crackled with urgency. "Suspect has fired warning shots. Repeat, shots fired inside the building. He's becoming increasingly erratic." Emma made a decision that would change everything. She drove back toward Maple Street, parking 3 blocks away and approaching on foot through the alley behind her shop. The police had cordoned off the front of the street, but she knew every back entrance in the neighborhood. She slipped into Blooming Hearts through the rear door and immediately climbed to the loft. From her storage area, she pulled out a long, narrow case that had been hidden behind boxes of silk flowers. Inside was a rifle she'd told herself she would never need again. The Remington 700 was in perfect condition, cleaned and maintained despite 4 years of disuse. Emma assembled it with the muscle memory of someone who had done this thousands of times in environments where hesitation meant death. The scope was zeroed for 100 meters, which meant she'd need to adjust for the shorter distance. As she sat up by the loft window, Emma tried to convince herself she was just preparing options. She wasn't going to shoot, she was just observing, providing intelligence if needed. Through the scope, she could see the situation clearly. Marcus Webb was becoming more agitated by the minute, waving the rifle erratically and shouting at the hostages. One of the women appeared to be injured, blood visible on her shoulder. The man had positioned himself protectively in front of the 2 women. Emma's training kicked in automatically. Target assessment: adult male, approximately 5 feet 10 inches, 180 pounds, moving in predictable pattern between window and hostages. Weapon: hunting rifle, probably .306, held with amateur grip suggesting limited training. Psychological state: deteriorating rapidly, high probability of violence within next 15 minutes. The police radio in her car was still audible through the open window. Suspect has threatened to execute hostages if demands aren't met. SWAT is requesting permission for entry. Emma knew what that meant. SWAT entry through windows or doors would almost certainly result in casualties. Webb was too unstable and too close to the hostages. At 11:41 a.m., everything changed. "Shots fired! Shots fired! Suspect has wounded one hostage. Request immediate medical and tactical response." Through her scope, Emma saw one of the women on the floor, the man desperately trying to stop bleeding from what appeared to be a leg wound. Webb was screaming something unintelligible, raising his rifle again. Emma's world narrowed to the precise focus she'd learned in 8 years of military service. Wind speed steady at 8 miles per hour, distance 52.3 meters, target exposed for 3.7 seconds every 12 seconds as he paced to the window. Her finger found the trigger with the familiarity of a pianist touching keys. At 11:43 a.m., Staff Sergeant Emma Rodriguez returned from 4 years of civilian life in the span of a single heartbeat. Webb moved to the window, rifle raised toward the hostages. Emma's breathing slowed to the controlled rhythm she'd learned in sniper school. Inhale, exhale halfway, hold, slight pressure on trigger, natural point of aim, sight picture perfect. The rifle cracked once, the sound echoed off the buildings like thunder. Through the scope, Emma watched Webb drop immediately, the hunting rifle falling from lifeless hands. Clean shot, center mass, no collateral damage. The 3 hostages were safe. For a moment the street fell silent, then police radios exploded with chatter. "Suspect down! Suspect down! Unknown shooter, unknown location. Sniper teams report negative on shot fired. All units, sweep for secondary shooter." Emma sat back from the rifle, her hands shaking slightly as adrenaline flooded her system. She'd just killed a man for the first time in 4 years. She'd also saved 3 lives. As SWAT teams stormed the building and paramedics rushed toward the office, Emma carefully disassembled her rifle and returned it to its case. She was closing the storage box when she heard footsteps on the stairs behind her. Detective Morrison stood in the loft doorway, his service weapon drawn but lowered. His eyes moved from Emma to the rifle case to the window overlooking the office building. "Ms. Rodriguez." His voice was carefully controlled. "I think we need to talk." Emma stood slowly, her hands visible. "Yes, Detective. I think we do. That was a hell of a shot." "It was necessary." Morrison looked at the rifle case. "Military?" "Army Special Forces, 8 years, sniper specialist." "Why didn't you tell me?" Emma looked out the window at the paramedics loading the wounded hostage into an ambulance. "Because I'm a florist now. I arrange flowers. I don't kill people." "But you just did." "I saved 3 people. There's a difference." Morrison studied her for a long moment. "Ms. Rodriguez, you know I have to report this." "I know. That shot. Through glass, at that distance, in a hostage situation. Most of our tactical guys couldn't make that shot." Emma turned to face him fully. "Detective, I've made shots at twice that distance in wind that would knock you over. Today was easy. Today was just necessary." Within an hour, Emma's small flower shop was surrounded by law enforcement vehicles. FBI, ATF, local police, and military investigators all wanted to know how a civilian florist had made a shot that professional snipers called perfect. Emma sat in the back of Detective Morrison's car, not under arrest but not free to leave, while investigators processed what had happened. The hostages were safe, Marcus Webb was dead, and nobody could figure out where the shot had come from until security cameras showed Emma entering her shop through the back door. "Ms. Rodriguez," said Agent Patricia Hayes from the FBI, sliding into the car beside her. "We've run your background. Staff Sergeant Emma Rodriguez, 75th Ranger Regiment, graduated top of your class from sniper school at Fort Benning." "That's correct. Honorable discharge 4 years ago, no criminal record, opened blooming heart 6 months after discharge." Agent Hayes paused. "Why flowers?" Emma looked across the street at her shop with its cheerful yellow awning and window boxes full of daisies. "Because flowers are about life, growth, beauty, everything I hadn't been thinking about for 8 years. And yet you kept the rifle." "Old habits." "That wasn't a habit, Ms. Rodriguez. That was a professional military sniper shot under extreme pressure. You saved 3 lives today." Emma didn't respond immediately. Through the car window, she could see paramedics bringing the wounded hostage out on a stretcher. The woman was conscious, talking to the EMTs, alive because Emma had made a choice to be something other than a florist for 30 seconds. Agent Hayes, am I under arrest? Number, you're not. What you did was legal under the circumstances, justified use of force to prevent imminent death or serious bodily harm to others. Hayes leaned forward. But we do have some questions. Over the next 3 hours, Emma was debriefed by various agencies. Her military record was reviewed, her current life scrutinized, and her actions analyzed by ballistics experts who confirmed what everyone already knew. The shot was impossible for anyone without extensive sniper training. Detective Morrison returned as the sun was setting. Ms. Rodriguez, you're free to go, but there's something you should know. What's that? The hostage you saved, Rebecca Chen, the woman who was shot in the leg, she's asking to meet you. Emma shook her head. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Because I don't want to be celebrated for killing someone. I just want to go back to arranging flowers. But Morrison was persistent. She's in the hospital, room 314, says she won't leave until she can thank the person who saved her life. An hour later, Emma stood outside room 314 at Riverside General Hospital. Through the partially open door, she could see Rebecca Chen, a woman in her 40s with dark hair and a bandaged leg, talking quietly with her family. Emma knocked softly. Ms. Chen, I'm Emma Rodriguez. Rebecca's face transformed with relief and gratitude. You're the one who... I'm the florist across the street. You saved our lives. Rebecca's voice broke slightly. That man was going to kill us. The police couldn't get a clear shot, and he was getting more and more angry. Emma approached the bed carefully. I'm glad you're safe. How did you... the police said it was an impossible shot. Emma hesitated. I used to be in the military. What kind of military training lets you shoot like that? The kind that's supposed to stay in the military. Rebecca reached out and grasped Emma's hand. I don't care about your training or your past. I care that my daughter still has a mother because of what you did today. For the first time since the shooting, Emma felt tears threatening. I haven't touched a rifle in 4 years. I promised myself I never would again. Why? Because I was tired of death. I wanted to create life instead. Beautiful things, peaceful things. Rebecca squeezed her hand tighter. You created the most beautiful thing of all today. You gave 3 families their loved ones back. The story broke on local news that evening. Local florist reveals military past, saves hostages with precision shot. By morning, it had gone national. Emma's quiet life as the neighborhood florist was over. She reopened Blooming Hearts 3 days later, hoping to return to normal. Instead, she found a line of customers stretching around the block. Some wanted to shake her hand. Others wanted to order flowers. A few wanted to hear the story from her directly. I don't really want to talk about it, Emma told the reporter from Channel 7 News. I'm just a florist. This was unusual circumstances. But the attention wouldn't stop. Military blogs picked up the story. Shooting enthusiasts analyzed the ballistics. Veterans groups hailed her as a hero. She received offers from security companies, military contractors, and even a reality TV show. Emma turned them all down. Why aren't you interested in going back to that life? Asked Detective Morrison, who had become something of a friend during the investigation. You're incredibly skilled. Because skill at killing shouldn't be celebrated, Emma replied, arranging a funeral spray for the Morrison family's grandmother. I'm good at this because I had to be, but I choose to be good at something else now. Morrison watched her work, noting the same precision that had made the impossible shot. Don't you miss it? I miss the brotherhood. I miss the sense of purpose, but I don't miss the weight of taking lives. Emma looked up from the flowers. Detective, every person I killed in the military had a family, a story, a life that ended because of my skills. I can't undo that, but I can choose what I do with those skills now. And what's that? Use them only when someone's life depends on it, like last week. A month later, Emma received an unexpected visitor, A woman in her 50s wearing a simple black dress entered the shop during the quiet afternoon hour. "Ms. Rodriguez, I'm Linda Webb." Emma looked up from the rose arrangement she was preparing. The name was familiar, but she couldn't place it immediately. "Marcus Webb was my son." Emma's hand stilled on the flowers. "I'm sorry for your loss." Linda Webb nodded slowly. "I came to thank you." "Ma'am?" Marcus had been struggling with mental illness for years. He lost his job, his apartment, his girlfriend. He stopped taking his medication. Linda's voice was steady but tired. "What he did that day, that wasn't my son. That was his illness." Emma didn't know what to say. "You prevented him from becoming a murderer. You saved those people, yes, but you also saved him from doing something that would have destroyed what was left of his soul." Linda looked around the flower shop. "This is beautiful. You create beautiful things." "I try to." "Marcus used to love flowers. When he was little, he'd bring me dandelions from the yard." Linda smiled sadly. "Could you make an arrangement for his funeral? Something hopeful?" Emma nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, ma'am, I'd be honored." 6 months after the shooting, Emma's life had found a new kind of normal. The media attention had faded, the curious crowds had moved on to other stories, and Blooming Hearts had returned to being a neighborhood flower shop. But something had changed in Emma. The perfect separation she'd maintained between her military past and civilian present had been broken. She couldn't pretend anymore that Staff Sergeant Rodriguez and Emma the florist were different people. They were the same person, carrying both sets of skills, both sets of experiences. "Emma," called Detective Morrison, entering the shop on a quiet Tuesday morning. "Got a minute?" "What's up?" "We've got a situation developing downtown. Armed robbery, suspect barricaded in a pharmacy with hostages. Our sniper team is having trouble with the angle." Emma set down her pruning shears. "Ray." I know. You're a florist. But Emma, there are 4 people in there, including 2 kids. And you're the best shot anyone's ever seen." Emma looked around her shop, at the peaceful arrangements, the soft colors, the life she'd built around creating beauty instead of delivering death. "This isn't my job anymore." "I know, but those kids—" Emma closed her eyes, thinking about Rebecca Chen in the hospital, thanking her for giving her daughter back her mother. About Linda Webb, grateful that her son hadn't become a murderer. About the weight of skills that could save lives or take them. "One condition," she said finally. "Name it. After today, you don't ask me again. I'm a florist. This is what I do. But sometimes—" Emma looked toward downtown, where children were in danger. "Sometimes a florist has to do something else." Morrison nodded. "I understand." Emma hung up her apron and reached for her keys. "Let me get my equipment." As they drove toward downtown, Morrison asked, "Do you regret it? Leaving the military?" Emma watched the city pass by outside the window. Ordinary people living ordinary lives, safe because people like her had learned to do extraordinary things when necessary. "I don't regret learning those skills," she said finally, "and I don't regret walking away from them, but I'm glad I still have them when someone needs them." The police car turned toward downtown, carrying a florist who had never stopped being a soldier, even when all she wanted was to arrange flowers and create beauty in a world that had seen too much of death. Some people serve their country in uniform. Others serve it in whatever way they can, whenever they're needed, using whatever skills they've learned along the way. Emma Rodriguez served by saving lives, sometimes with flowers that brought comfort to the grieving, sometimes with precision shots that brought hostages home safely. This story was brought to you by The Human Stories. If you know someone whose service continues in unexpected ways, share their story in the comments, and subscribe to honor those who never stop protecting others, whether in uniform or aprons.